I don't know. I mean, I just think that Michael is a very difficult person to deal with. I played with him for years, so I know that, when it's time for you to move in your direction, then go in your direction.
For years, Michael and Scottie Pippen never really got along. Now it feels like we finally know why. New footage of Michael and Larsa just dropped, and it seems that long before her son ever got involved with Larsa, Michael had already committed the ultimate betrayal. Let me break it down. The forbidden romance that split basketball royalty. Picture this. It's December 2022, and the basketball world is about to witness one of the most controversial relationships in sports history. Not between two players, not between a player and a celebrity, but between the son of basketball's greatest player and the ex-wife of his most famous teammate. When photos surfaced of Marcus Jordan and Larsa Pippen kissing and holding hands in Miami Beach, the internet collectively lost its mind. Then came an even bigger jolt. Footage of Michael Jordan and Larsa emerged. To grasp why this romance rattled the sport to its core, we have to rewind 30 years to when two young men from starkly different backgrounds joined forces to build one of the most dominant dynasties in sports history, and to see how that bond eventually crumbled in the most public way imaginable. Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. These names are synonymous with excellence, with championship glory, with 6 NBA titles that defined a generation. But what the world didn't fully understand until recently was that behind those championship celebrations, behind those iconic moments that we've watched countless times, there was a relationship that was far more complex and far more strained than anyone could have imagined.
The thing about Pip is, if you stand next to him, you make him stronger. All the Detroit times when Rodman wanted to pick on him, he needed someone there to stand there and say, hey, look, I fight with you, just fight. Scottie and I bonded, because he felt like, okay, he has someone that he can count on. And I'm looking at, okay, I got someone who I can actually count on.
That's Michael Jordan talking about Scottie Pippen, describing what seemed like an unbreakable bond forged in the fires of NBA competition. They faced down the bad boy Pistons together. They conquered Magic Johnson's Lakers, and they built a legacy that seemed destined to last forever. But as we now know, that bond was more fragile than anyone realized. The first cracks in their relationship became visible during the 1997 playoffs, but they were papered over by success. 6 championships have a way of making everything else seem trivial, but those cracks never healed. They festered, they grew, and they eventually exploded in the most public forum possible, Netflix's The Last Dance documentary. When The Last Dance premiered in 2020, basketball fans around the world thought they were getting an inside look at greatness. What they actually got was a masterclass in how differently two people can remember the same events. Michael Jordan, as the executive producer, crafted a narrative that centered his journey, his sacrifices, his leadership. Scottie Pippen watched from the sidelines as his contributions were minimized, his struggles were highlighted, and his relationship with his former teammate was put on display for millions to judge.
You have a lot of criticism about The Last Dance.
I thought it was a great documentary. I felt like the documentary only told a story that sort of glorified him as a player and not glorified us as a team.
Those words from Scottie Pippen revealed the depth of his frustration. This wasn't just about basketball statistics or who got more credit. This was about a friendship that had been reduced to a footnote in someone else's story. And when Pippen called Jordan selfish in his memoir, it wasn't just criticism of his playing style. It was the culmination of decades of resentment.
You call Michael Jordan selfish in the first chapter. Why is that?
I mean, he was a great scorer, but a lot of things that he did was based on him as an individual. And I think basketball is a team game.
But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. While Michael and Scottie's relationship was deteriorating in public, their children were growing up in the same basketball circles. Marcus Jordan, born on December 24, 1990, was just a kid when his father was winning championships alongside Scottie Pippen. Larsa Pippen, who married Scottie in 1997, was building her own life and family while watching her husband contribute to basketball immortality. Marcus and Larsa first met in 2019 at a Los Angeles party, and their initial relationship was purely platonic. In fact, there were rumors that Larsa had once babysat Marcus during the Bulls era, though this added an uncomfortable dynamic that critics would later seize upon. For 3 years, they remained friends, nothing more. Marcus was building his own identity separate from his father's legacy, opening Trophy Room, a high-end sneaker boutique in Orlando. Larsa was navigating her own challenges, including the end of her 21-year marriage to Scottie Pippen in 2021. Neither could have predicted that their friendship would evolve into something that that would reignite one of basketball's most bitter feuds. The transformation from friends to lovers didn't happen overnight. It was a gradual process that culminated in those December 2022 photos in Miami Beach. But when Larsa confirmed their relationship on Watch What Happens Live, noting family approval despite the complicated history, she opened a Pandora's box that neither family was prepared for. The age gap alone was enough to generate headlines. Marcus, at 32, was dating Larsa, who was 48, a 16-year age difference that sparked countless debates about power dynamics and appropriateness. But the age gap was just the beginning. The real controversy lay in the complex web of relationships that connected their families. Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen's relationship had been strained for years, but it was still salvageable. They were former teammates who had simply grown apart, as many athletes do after retirement. But when Michael's son began dating Scottie's ex-wife, it added a personal dimension to their professional disagreements that made reconciliation almost impossible. The basketball community watched in fascination and horror as this drama unfolded. Charles Barkley, never one to shy away from controversy, perfectly captured the collective sentiment when he weighed in on the relationship.
Because when it's messy, everybody has an opinion on it. Everybody has an opinion. And you know, the internet is not a place for messy.
No.
Barkley understood what many others were slow to grasp. This wasn't just a celebrity relationship that would generate tabloid headlines for a few weeks. This was a situation that would have lasting consequences for multiple families, including children who were already dealing with the complexity of famous parents and public scrutiny. The relationship between Marcus and Larsa represented more than just two people falling in love. It was the collision of two basketball dynasties, the reopening of old wounds, and the creation of new complications that would test the bonds of family, friendship, and forgiveness. When Michael Jordan was asked by paparazzi about his approval of the relationship and responded with a simple no, it became clear that this story was far from over. What started as a simple romance between two adults had become a public spectacle that would force everyone involved to confront decades of unresolved issues. The stage was set for a drama that would play out over the next 2 years, involving podcast launches, reality TV appearances, multiple breakups and reconciliations, and ultimately a reckoning that would change these families forever. The question wasn't whether this relationship would survive, it was whether the relationships between the parents would survive the fallout. When love becomes a public spectacle. If you thought the initial revelation of Marcus Jordan and Larsa Pippen's relationship was dramatic, you clearly underestimated just how messy things were about to get. Because what unfolded over the next 18 months wasn't just a relationship, it was a masterclass in how public scrutiny can transform private emotions into public entertainment, and how the sins of the fathers can complicate the lives of their children in ways that no one could have predicted. By January 2023, Marcus and Larsa had moved from secret romance to full public display. Larsa posted their first joint Instagram photo at Marcus's Orlando sneaker boutique trophy room, and suddenly everything changed. This wasn't just two people dating anymore. This was a brand, a story, a piece of content that the world couldn't get enough of. But with that publicity came pressure that neither of them was prepared for. The basketball world had opinions, and they weren't keeping them to themselves. When they attended a Chargers game together in the summer of 2023, they were heckled by fans who had no problem letting them know exactly what they thought of their relationship. The criticism wasn't just coming from random fans in the stands. Charles Barkley's assessment of the situation as so messy was just the beginning. The entire basketball establishment seemed to have an opinion about whether this relationship was appropriate, sustainable, or just plain wrong.
There's only losers. Because obviously Michael and Scottie's relationship can't ever be the same.
Right.
Barkley understood something that maybe Marcus and Larsa were too caught up in their feelings to see clearly. This relationship wasn't happening in a vacuum. Every public appearance, every social media post, every interview was adding another layer of complexity to an already fraught situation between their families. And then there was Michael Jordan's response to the whole situation. When paparazzi approached him about his son's relationship, his immediate no response became instant meme material. Marcus later tried to downplay it, claiming his father was just joking and that Michael actually loved Larsa. But according to sources, the public disapproval reportedly hurt Larsa, adding strain to a relationship that was already dealing with unprecedented public scrutiny. What's fascinating about this period is how Marcus and Larsa seemed to double down on their relationship in response to the criticism. Instead of retreating from the spotlight, they embraced it. They launched a podcast called Separation Anxiety, a title that now seems prophetic given how their story eventually ended. They also appeared together on Peacock's The Traitors Season 2, turning their relationship into entertainment entertainment content. But here's what's really interesting about this phase of their relationship. The more public they became, the more the cracks began to show. Reality TV has a way of exposing truths that people might prefer to keep hidden, and the traitors gave viewers a front row seat to the dynamics between Marcus and Larsa that weren't always as smooth as their Instagram posts suggested. Meanwhile, the feud between Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen was reaching new levels of public animosity. In interviews, Pippen was opening up about just how strained his relationship with Jordan had become, revealing details that painted their championship years in a completely different light.
I think we end up speaking briefly.
Did it end up being good, the conversation?
Yeah, I guess. Good and final.
That's what it was.
That's Scottie Pippen talking about what he describes as his final conversation with Michael Jordan, which took place around May 2020. The phrase good and final speaks volumes about where their relationship stood even before Marcus and Larsa's romance added another layer of complication.
Great teammate, but we just never were great friends.
This revelation from Pippen completely recontextualizes everything we thought we knew about the Bulls dynasty. They weren't just teammates who had grown apart. According to Pippen, they were never really friends to begin with. This makes the Marcus-Larsa situation even more complex because it suggests that the tension between the families wasn't a new development caused by the relationship, but rather a long-standing issue that the relationship simply brought to the surface. Think about that for a moment. These two men won 6 NBA championships together, spent countless hours practicing, traveling, and competing at the highest level of professional basketball. And according to Pippen, they never once had a one-on-one dinner together. This wasn't just a professional relationship that had soured over time. This was a professional relationship that had apparently never evolved into a personal friendship. These revelations cast the Marcus-Larsa relationship in an entirely different light. It wasn't just about two young people falling in love despite family complications. It was about two young people falling in love while their families were dealing with decades of unresolved professional and personal tensions that had never been properly addressed. As 2023 progressed, the pressure on Marcus and Larsa's relationship continued to mount. They were discussing marriage openly, with Marcus hinting at an engagement, but behind the scenes, the strain was beginning to show. The constant public scrutiny, the family tensions, and the weight of carrying so much symbolic baggage was taking its toll. The relationship had become bigger than the two people in it. They weren't just Marcus and Larsa anymore. They were representatives of their family's complicated history, symbols of unresolved conflicts, and lightning rods for every opinion about loyalty, respect, and boundaries in the basketball community. But perhaps the most telling sign of how much pressure they were under came from an unexpected source. Larsa's children, her 4 kids, Scottie Jr., Preston, Justin, and Sophia, were watching their mother's relationship play out in the public eye, and they weren't entirely comfortable with what they were seeing. The relationship that had started as a genuine connection between two people who understood the pressures of growing up in basketball families had morphed into something much more complicated. It had become a story that everyone wanted to tell, a drama that everyone wanted to follow, and a spectacle that was putting tremendous strain on everyone involved. By the end of 2023, it was becoming clear that something had to give. The relationship was generating more headlines than happiness, more stress than satisfaction, and more problems than solutions. The stage was set for what would become a very public, very messy, and very painful conclusion to what had started as a fairy tale romance. The question was no longer whether Marcus and Larsa could make their relationship work. It was whether they could end it without causing even more damage to their families and themselves. And frankly speaking, some people have discredited Larsa's true intentions about the relationship considering her controversial dating history. Larsa's and NBA stars. While her marriage to Scottie itself wasn't overtly scandalous, it set the stage for Larsa's future romances by immersing her in NBA culture. The prolonged divorce proceedings fueled media scrutiny, including unverified rumors linking Larsa to other players during separations. During her first separation from Scottie in 2016, Larsa Pippen dipped her toe into the dating pool with Cleveland Cavaliers center Tristan Thompson. The brief romance unfolded just before Thompson began his infamous on-again, off-again relationship with Khloe Kardashian, whom Larsa had introduced him to at a Kim Kardashian-hosted party. At the time, Larsa was navigating personal turmoil, later reflecting on the fling as a momentary escape. The relationship lasted only a few months, ending when Thompson shifted his focus to Khloe. Larsa has insisted it was casual and denied any any intent to sabotage her friend's budding romance. The timing raised eyebrows, especially given the Kardashian connection. Rumors swirled that Larsa was trying to ruin Khloe's life, which she vehemently refuted in interviews, emphasizing her platonic friendship with the family. This episode highlighted Pippen's entanglement in overlapping social circles, a theme that would recur. Pippen's most explosive post-divorce romance came with Minnesota Timberwolves, later Detroit Pistons, guard Malik Beasley in late 2020. At 46, Larsa was 23 years Beasley's senior, a gap that amplified the headlines when paparazzi captured them holding hands in Miami. The couple went Instagram official shortly after, with Larsa posting affectionate photos amid the buzz. The relationship spanned 4 months, fueled by shared interests in fitness and nightlife. Beasley, then with the Timberwolves, was traded to Detroit in 2021, and the distance contributed to their April 2021 split. They parted as friends, with Larsa later claiming Beasley had told her he was separated from his wife, Montana Yao. Yao's tearful Instagram rant exposed the lie. Beasley was very much married and expecting a child with her. Yao called out Larsa for ignoring red flags, turning the affair into a public spectacle of betrayal and age shaming. The scandal peaked when Beasley joined the Los Angeles Lakers in 2023, making his ex-girlfriend the mother of his new teammate Scottie Pippen Jr., an awkward NBA family reunion. Larsa defended herself, saying she believed Beasley's story, but the episode cemented her image as a disruptor in young athletes' lives. In a revelation from mid-2025, Larsa disclosed a short-lived romance with a 47-year-old NBA coach, whom she described as so immature, despite the modest age difference. She was around 50 at the time. The relationship occurred sometime after her split from Marcus Jordan, but before her current pairing, serving as a bridge in her basketball-adjacent dating spree. Larsa shared on her podcast that the coach showered her with lavish gifts during love-bombing phases, but balked at commitment. She ended it abruptly, later telling him the fling proved age is nothing but a number, though she vowed never to date someone so emotionally stunted again. Their shared passion for hoops made it promising on paper, but it fizzled quickly. The anonymity of the coach, no name was revealed, spared immediate backlash, but Larsa's candid airing of his flaws reignited discussions about her pattern of critiquing exes publicly. It also underscored her ongoing attraction to basketball insiders, blurring lines between personal and professional spheres. As of September 2025, Larsa is in a committed relationship with 31-year-old Jeff Kobe, a former professional basketball player who briefly played overseas after going undrafted in the NBA. They went public in April 2025 with a red carpet debut at the Accountant 2 premiere, and sources say engagement talks are underway. Kobe, a decade plus younger than Larsa, has been praised by her for his maturity and family-oriented values, qualities she claims set him apart from past partners. The couple bonded over fitness and travel, with Larsa posting subtle couples content on social media. The 20-year age gap has drawn familiar snickers, but so far, it's been relatively drama-free compared to predecessors. However, skeptics wonder if this retired baller fits her mold of chasing NBA-adjacent youth, potentially setting up future heartbreak. Larsa Pippen's NBA dating dossier isn't just a string of romances. It's a lightning rod for broader conversations about age, power dynamics, and celebrity excess in sports. Her ex-husband's Bulls-era fame provides endless fodder, whether it's dating his rival's son, Marcus Jordan, 2022-2024, a non-player but controversial due to the Jordan-Pippen feud, or players like Beasley, who end up orbiting her son's career. Pippen embraces the scrutiny, often quipping on podcasts that she's living her best life without apology. Yet, for every defender hailing her confidence, there's a detractor decrying the predatory optics of a 50-something pursuing 20 and 30-somethings. As of now, with Jeff Kobe by her side, Larsa shows no signs of slowing down. Whether this marks a healthier turn or just the calm before another storm remains to be seen, but one thing's certain, in the League of Love, Pippen plays to win. Looking back at this entire episode with Michael, it's clear that what started as a genuine romantic connection between two people who understood the pressures of growing up in basketball families became something much larger and more destructive. The relationship became a symbol of unresolved conflicts between their parents, a lightning rod for public opinion about loyalty and boundaries, and ultimately a cautionary tale about how public relationships can spiral out of control. The most lasting lesson from the Marcus Jordan and Larsa Pippen saga might be about the weight of legacy and how the actions of one generation can complicate the lives of the next. Marcus and Larsa weren't just two people falling in love, they were carrying decades of basketball history, family loyalty, and public expectations into their relationship. That weight ultimately proved too heavy for their romance to bear. But there's another dimension to this story that deserves examination: the role of social media and modern celebrity culture in amplifying relationship drama beyond all reasonable proportions. In previous generations, when NBA legends had personal conflicts or their children made controversial dating choices, these issues might have been handled privately or discussed only within basketball circles. The Marcus Larsa situation, however, played out in real time across Instagram Instagram stories, podcast episodes, reality TV appearances, and Twitter feuds, creating a feedback loop of public commentary that made resolution almost impossible. Every social media post became a statement, every public appearance became a photo opportunity for speculation, and every interview became an opportunity for one side or the other to relitigate old grievances. The couple's decision to launch the Separation Anxiety podcast, a title that now seems almost prophetic, demonstrated how modern celebrities often feel compelled to monetize their personal drama rather than resolve it privately. Consider the psychological toll this must have taken on everyone involved. Larsa, at 48, found herself defending her life choices to strangers on the internet while simultaneously trying to maintain stability for her 4 children. Marcus, despite being in his 30s, was still dealing with being known primarily as Michael Jordan's son, while navigating a relationship that put him at odds with his father's legacy and public image. The children in both families became unwitting participants in this public spectacle. Larsa's kids ultimately had to stage an intervention to protect their mother's mental health, while Marcus's relationship with his father faced unprecedented scrutiny. Even Michael Jordan, arguably the most private superstar athlete of his generation, found himself being asked by paparazzi about his son's dating life, a situation that must have been deeply uncomfortable for someone who has spent decades carefully controlling his public image. The basketball community's reaction also revealed something troubling about how we process celebrity relationships. The immediate rush to take sides, the creation of memes and jokes about a genuinely painful situation, and the way social media turned family drama into entertainment content all speak to a culture that has lost sight of the human cost of public spectacle. Yet perhaps most revealing was how differently the two families handled the aftermath. The Jordan family, despite the public pressure and media attention, appears to have emerged with their relationships intact. Michael and Marcus continue to maintain their close bond, suggesting that their family unit was strong enough to withstand this external pressure. The Pippen family dynamics, however, remain more complex, with Scotty's relationship with both Michael and his ex-wife continuing to evolve in unpredictable ways. 15 months after their final split, both seem to have found peace in their separate lives. Marcus is focusing on his business and maintaining a low profile, while Larsa has embraced a mature, supportive partnership with Jeff Kobe. The drama that once consumed headlines has settled into memory, but its impact on basketball's most famous families will likely last far longer than the relationship that caused it. In the end, Charles Barkley was right. This was messy, and in messy situations, there are usually no winners, only people trying to heal from the damage and move forward with their lives. The Marcus Jordan and Larsa Pippen saga serves as a cautionary tale about the intersection of celebrity, family legacy, and social media culture, reminding us that behind every viral moment are real people dealing with very human emotions and very real consequences. Thanks for watching. Check out other cards on the screen.